والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى أصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. We finished the ayah number 25 in Surah Al-Baqarah. We finished the ayah, or the verse number 25 in Surah Al-Baqarah. We said the main themes were there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was, at the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, establishing the message of Islam. And the message of Islam was clearly stated in verse number 21. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks directly to humanity. He says, Ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu rabbakum. Ya ayyuhan nas, O humanity, worship your Lord. U'budu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum alladhi min qablikum. So generally, this is the heart of the message of the Quran. This is it. And it's a good thing that actually comes right at the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. It just gives a very straightforward, sometimes a very straightforward message. Because when somebody looks into Surah Al-Baqarah, some people look into the Quran, obviously people are going to start reading from cover to cover. So they will start with the beginning. Generally speaking, when you pick up a book, you don't just open a page randomly, right? You just look at the beginning. You start looking at it, you're interested in the book, you want to read, you want to see what the book has to say. Yes, you might check the table of contents, but in the Quran, these are just the surahs. So they don't give a strong indication really as to what the message of the Quran is. So usually people, when they pick up the Quran to read it, they start reading from the beginning. Surah Al-Fatiha, which we said is a very powerful message, right? And they read it to Surah Al-Baqarah. So Allah doesn't extend the message or keep the message for later on. He actually gives it right at the beginning, fairly at the beginning. So the person who's really searching for the truth, they come face to face with it. It's echoey, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so basically this was the core of the message of the Quran. It was presented right at the beginning and to make the message clear. And remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts Surah Al-Baqarah with 3 random letters, and we said scholars had different opinions with regards to what they actually mean, but we can safely say that these letters, Alif, Lam, Mim, they basically send the message that listen, the Quran is made of these very basic letters that the Arabic language is made of. Alif, Lam, Mim, that's what the Quran is built upon, and these are just Arabic letters. So that the challenge will come later on as to produce something like it. It's based on the same letters. Let's see if you can produce something like it, even though it's based on the same letters or built from the same letters. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes 3 types of people. Believers, those who accept the message, and those who refuse the message. الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieve, they refuse the message. And the third one are the hypocrites. The hypocrites or the munafiqun. And look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the believers in about 4 or 5 verses. The disbelievers, or those who reject faith, in 2 verses. Then Allah speaks about the hypocrites in a good number of verses. That's the most detailed or extensive description at the beginning. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moves on to give the message we said, or humanity or humans, worship your Lord who created you and those who came before you, etc. Then Allah talks about the outcome of your response to this message. So He talks about the hellfire, and He talks about paradise. And that's where we basically stopped last time, at the end of Surah, the verse 25. Now let's move to verse number 26. And here there is a shift. And by the way, the Quran is not a textbook. It's not a textbook. A textbook is straightforward and right to the point. Right to the point. The Quran is not structured like this. So you will find the Quran speaking about one topic, then it moves on to talk another topic, then it comes back to the first topic, then moves to a third topic, then it keeps going, sometimes what seems to be going around. But obviously there's nothing random in the Quran. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, He let the Quran be in this way for wisdom. So we can't treat the Quran as a textbook. And by the way, look at textbooks. If you get a textbook, you read it once, twice, you sort of understand it, then it gets dull and boring. That's it. You don't go back to it. But the Quran, as the narration goes, which is not authentic from the Prophet ﷺ, but it was narrated from, it seems, some of the companions, specifically Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, لَا تَنْقَضِي عَجَائِبُهُ لَا تَنْقَضِي عَجَائِبُهُ. The wonders of the Quran will never cease to exist. There will always be something. وَلَا يَخْلَقُ عَلَى كَثْرَةِ التَّرْدَادِ وَكَثْرَةِ الرَّدِّ. And the Quran will never get too old. It will never be old. Like you will read it, but you will never feel it's redundant. You've figured it out. The other day I was reading a book by an Egyptian scholar who died maybe 20 years ago, or maybe a little bit less. Sheikh Muhammad al-Ghazali, rahimahullah. And one of the books he wrote was التفسير الموضوعي للقرآن. نحو تفسير موضوعي للقرآن, towards a thematic interpretation of the Quran. It's a concise commentary on the Quran. It's based on the themes. He wrote a beautiful introduction. He says, I memorized the Quran when I was 10 years old. He committed the Quran to memory when he was 10 years old. And he says, and I kept studying it, and I was studying it throughout my life. And he says, here I am in my 80s, still I feel I haven't got enough of the Quran. He says, I feel there is more wisdom that I am yet to learn from the Quran. So don't treat the Quran as a textbook, expecting it to be structured into like specific paragraphs, a very predictable, straightforward flow of ideas. That's not how the Quran is. The Quran will challenge you. Why? Because the Quran doesn't only speak to your mind, doesn't speak intellectually. The Quran speaks to the humans at multi-levels at the same time. And that's why it's very rich and powerful. So it really addresses you intellectually. It's very intriguing. It challenges you intellectually. It engages you. Emotionally, it puts you through some emotions at the same time. But it also touches, or it basically awakens you spiritually. That's a third dimension, a third level. And it adds like a historical perspective to certain things. And so the Quran at the same time gives you a rich, a full experience, so you can't just treat it as a normal textbook or as a book written by a human being. And usually any book, no matter how great it is, once you read it once, twice, let's say like 10 times, like a really great book, you read it 10 times. After that, you don't feel like going back to it, because you sort of figured it out, you moved on. But with the Quran, this doesn't happen. Anyone who's studied the Quran over a long period of time, they just tell you there's much more to the Quran than I could really master yet. And that's the power and the beauty of the Quran. And this is why really, I'm speaking here to parents. If you want good for your children, you need to teach them the Quran. You really need to talk to them about the Quran and help them understand how important it is. Why? Because it's a source of power. It's a source of depth. It's a source of maturity, a source of understanding. There's a lot of wisdom in the Quran. So it is something that we need to hold on to. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here shifts discourse. He starts talking about something else. Why? Again, if you remember, we said the Quran is full of what we called amthal, parables, analogies, examples, stories. Why? Because the human mind, according to some cognitive scientists, thinks in images. Like we say, one image or one picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So when you create a mental image, you also give a very powerful message, extremely powerful message. So you can summarize a very detailed, complex situation in one statement. As simple as that. Just one thing. So the Quran, we said, gives a lot of examples and parables. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that people who are not looking for the truth, when these parables are given, they will not get the message. Why? Because they are focusing on the wrong things. You remember, guys, you said something about the Quran. The Quran is more like a mirror. It's a mirror in the sense that it will reflect back on you what you're seeking and what you're searching. And we mentioned some verses. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And we sent from the Quran revelation what is a source of healing and mercy to the believers. To the believers. وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Whereas those, the wrongdoers, it will increase them in loss. So the Quran will really increase some people in confusion. The Quran, yes, if they are looking for confusion and they're looking for the wrong things in the Quran, they're going to find confusion. They're going to find confusion. That's it. People of Quraysh, when they rejected the message, and they would look into it, they would search for what they thought to be wrong things about the Quran, and thus it made it more complex to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا مَا أُنزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ help me. نَظَرَ بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ هَلْ يَرَاكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ ثُمَّ انصَرَفُوا. Right? And when a verse from the Quran is being revealed, they would start looking at each other in some sort of like making fun of the Quran, or just like, what is this about? Then they would leave. I'm trying to get somewhere. I lost the verse. قالوا أيكم زادته هذه إيمانا. وإذا ما أنزلت سورة فمنهم من يقول أيكم زادته هذه إيمانا. So when some surah is revealed, some of them will say, you know, which one of you this increased them in faith? They're saying this in denial. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَزَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. As to those who believe, it has increased them in their faith. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَتْهُمْ رِجْسًا إِلَى رِجْسِهِمْ. Those who have diseases in their hearts, the surah that was revealed increased them in what? In filth. Increased them in confusion. You want to expound on that. So a surah could really increase someone in confusion, in misguidance, in loss. When they're looking for the wrong thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking now about this. And Allah explains the dynamics. Why some people miss the point. Why some people miss the point. Let's see. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. Allah does not shy away to mention as an analogy a mosquito, insignificant insect, creature. It's so small, it's so tiny that, you know, you're talking about like a very great issue like worship and the purpose of the creation and the reality of this world. And you talk about a mosquito, right? That would be the response of who? Someone who's not looking for the truth. Someone who's not looking for the truth. And by the way, it happens in daily conversations. You might be saying to someone, like you are in a situation, a serious situation, and you use a parable. And the parable may be, let's say you're in a very like serious situation where you were set up by someone, okay, who sort of tries to deceive you, and maybe he's going to incur a loss on you, let's say in a $50,000 loss. And you are debating this with your partner, or your business partner. And you just say, you know, you could tell that right from the beginning. So in the Arabic we say, al-maktub mbayyin min unwanu. So you could read a letter from the envelope. You could tell from the envelope what's inside of this letter. Why? The message is clear. Basically, you're sending the message, you know, I knew that person when he first came to partner up with us. I knew he was going to set us up. He was going to put us in trouble. So your partner, if he doesn't want to take the lesson and see that point, you know, he would say, what is like letter and envelope? You know, we're not in that business, man. Let's get serious. So that's that kind of attitude. You know, we're not talking about an envelope here now or about a title. We're talking about a serious loss of wealth and money and assets. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that Allah would use in the Quran parables, analogies. And some of those might be about insignificant creatures like the mosquito. Why? Because what is this surah called? We're talking about Baqarah. What's the Baqarah? Cow. And by the way, you hear some people, critics today, they say like the Quran, like the chapter called the cow. Again, people make fun of that now. Allah already answered that question. He already answered it. He said Allah does not shy away to mention the parable or the analogy of even a mosquito, even if it's tiny and small. Why? Because that's not the point. The point is not how tiny it is, how big it is. It's not about that. The issue is what? Is the lesson behind it. The lesson behind it. That's why Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. Allah does not shy away to mention the parable or the analogy of a mosquito or anything more than that. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. As to those who have faith, they know that message is the truth from the Lord. What is behind this parable, there's a lesson, so they take it. They take it. As فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَزَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Those who have faith, it will increase them in their faith, in their iman. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. That's how the believers respond. Why? Because they read the Quran searching for guidance. They listen to the Quran searching for guidance. And if you approach the Quran searching, honestly, sincerely searching for guidance, Allah will not misguide you. Allah will not misguide you. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. Those who disbelieve, they would say, you know, what's the point of mentioning a mosquito? That's basically it. So what is the point mentioning a mosquito? Like, why does Allah mention that? So they lost the point, which is the lesson, and they focused on what? On the analogy itself. Like it's a mosquito, but that's irrelevant. That's not the point. The point is the lesson behind it. Again, just like the two partners were having a debate about that potential third partner that set them up and really got them in trouble, and that person is saying, you know, I told you the envelope, you could read the letter from the envelope. It was obvious. And this guy says, you know, what envelope and what nonsense that is. Let's get into the matter. But that's really the issue, right? So, why? Because that guy is upset. And he wants to dismiss that statement. So, envelope, etc. He just finds something to dismiss it with. But he is not listening or paying attention to the real message behind the analogy. And again, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here that Allah would use any analogy that He finds fit and suitable to send the message across. Why? Because parables are the strongest way of sending a message to people. And those who believe, they would see the point. Those who disbelieve, they would actually dismiss it, making fun of the mosquito itself.